Hare Krishna. Very happy to be here again in the most famous temple here in Juhu with your most exquisitely beautiful deities. And very happy to see that the movement's growing here by leaps and bounds. In your mind's eye, leaps and bounds. Prabhupada said, Ananda Bhuti Bhavanam. The Krishna consciousness is blissful when it's expanding. And this is what he wanted, a room full of devotees. Lots of brahmacharis, yes? These are all brahmacharis? Brahmacharis? Matajis? Everyone. So this morning we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 2nd chapter, verse 32. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, because somehow the kirtan was a little longer, I'll just chant the verse myself and we'll move on. Shri Narada Uvacha Evam Te Nimina Pishta Vasudeva Mahatmaha Prati Puja Bhuvan Pritya Sa Sadashat Vijam Ritam. Translation and commentary by Srila Prabhupada. Shri Narada said, O Vasudeva, when Maharaj Nimi had thus inquired from the 9 Yogendras about devotional service to the Lord, those best of saintly persons sincerely thanked the king for his questions and spoke to him with affection in the presence of the members of the sacrificial assembly and the Brahmin priests. Purport. According to Sridhar Swami, not only the king, but also the members of the assembly and the priests conducting the sacrifices were all devoted to hearing and chanting the glories of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The sages, beginning with Kavi, will now each speak in turn, answering the questions of the king. Om Agyan Timidandasya Gyanan Gyana Shalakaya Chaksu Militam Jena Tasmai Siguru Sri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadaya Natisam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Hare So in this verse of Grantharaj, Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear Maharaj Nimi, a great Vedic king, inquiring from the 9 Yogendras, described here as saintly persons, taking guidance from sadhus and saints and brahmanas was one of the duties of the Vedic kings. Actually, the kings, their specific duties, how they're meant to conduct themselves, are described in what is called the Dharma Shastras. When you were born into a royal family and you were a prince, you didn't just automatically become the king when your father passed away. You were prepared for that seva. It's actually a service to society to be the king. So from a very young age, beginning actually at 5, you were trained as a prince to become a king. And you would study Dharma Shastras, like Manu Samhita, or especially in the Atharva Veda. The kings were actually quite learned personalities. They weren't just big, strong Kshatriyas who fought people on the battlefield. They're very learned learned personalities, especially in Atharva Veda. The Vedas cover all aspects of material society and spiritual wisdom. We have to learn how to live in this world, have a strong foundation how to live in this world, so we can very easily practice spiritual life, Krishna consciousness. So the Atharva Veda deals mainly with ruling over the citizens, taxes, conflict, war, minting money. These are things you learned as a prince in order to become a king. And then by that knowledge, how to rule society in a proper way, the citizens would be somewhat prosperous and peaceful to practice their spiritual traditions. But kings of yore were not solely interested in their citizens becoming prosperous. You could say as Raj Rishis, Raja means king and Rishi means a saint, actually as saintly persons sitting on the throne. That's a real king. Raja Rishi, a saintly person sitting on the throne. They were, you could say, most interested in the spiritual salvation of their citizens. Do we see that in the world today? Not so much. Therefore, a king would rule his kingdom in cooperation with the learned brahmanas. The king was always surrounded by brahmanas who were in the mode of goodness and could see things more clearly. If you're in the mode of tamas, you really see a blurry vision of life. Rajas, maybe a little clearer, but sattva means brahmanas who can see things as they are. And they teach us Shuddha Sattva. Sattva means the mode of goodness, but beyond the mode of goodness is Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha Sattva is a Vaishnava, or Vaishnavi, who are transcendentalists. But in order to see things clearly, to see things through the eyes of Guru, Shastra and Sadhu, the clear vision of seeing through Guru, Shastra and Sadhu, the king would be surrounded by brahmanas, priests. A king, although we're describing them as Raj Rishis, a king was a very powerful individual, you could say somewhat influenced by the mode of passion, because he had to manage. Management, it's a headache. And if you have to manage a country, you can imagine. There's a saying that the crown of the king is heavy. The crown of the king is heavy. Therefore, always managing and having headaches and deciding this and not this, not that, this. He had a jester. He had a person actually who told jokes. It may sound, maybe that's not the best way to put it, jokes, but he would have someone who was, who could say funny things from time to time to relieve him. It's like King Akbar. He had, what's his name, Akbar? He had Birbal. You know the stories? They put it in a comic book form now for children, but actually King Akbar, he had Birbal, and Birbal was one of his ministers. Very learned minister, but able to keep things a little light sometimes. It's a science. So kings were, because they had to manage, they had a tinge of rajas was there. So therefore they had a council of brahmanas to help them. Krishna describes the kings, actually, the Kshatriyas in Bhagavad-gita. Soryam tejo gritir daksham yudhe chap yapalayanam. Famous verse. The leader, the king, or let us say the prime minister, the president, in modern day terminology. Shoryam teju ditirudaksham yudhe chapya palayanam. Heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the natural qualities of work for Kshatriyas. If you want to be president, if you want to be prime minister, if you want to lead, these are the qualities that are necessary for that service. You have to be heroic. You have to be a very powerful person. You have to be determined. Resourcefulness, just like before the Battle of Kurukshetra. War costs money. Let's get down to earth here. You have to fight a war. A big battle was coming between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. It wasn't just they just came together like some storybook. A lot of preparation was there. So Yudhishthira, he sent his 4 brothers to different parts of the world to get gold to be used to perform the battle. Or in the beginning, to perform the sacrifice, the Yajna Vishnu, to get the blessings of Vishnu or Krishna. Money was needed. Like Prabhupada said, to run a society, men, money, and capital. Even this movement, ISKCON, we need men, money, and capital. So some people aren't interested in that. They like to work with their hands, they like to milk cows. That's fine, it's all part of Varnashram Dharma, but if you want to lead, you have to be heroic, powerful, determined against all odds, courage in battle. The king would lead the charge. He wouldn't be back in his office some 1,000 kilometers away, No. Many times kings lost their lives fighting the battle. So this is natural. Kshatriyas, it's in their DNA. They're born like that. They're in a lineage of kings. Like there's lineages of pure devotees. Prabhupada said, my father, Gomohan De, he was a pure devotee. So Prabhupada was naturally born into a line of pure devotees. So kings, they weren't necessarily elected. Prabhupada said one time, democracy means demon crazy. If only because everyone, Kalo Sudra Sambhavan, people are generally like Sudras, especially in Kali Yuga. So there was no need to elect because you were born a Kshatriya. And you naturally took that way of life. But without the guidance of the Brahmanas, such leadership was not complete. Because kings had that little touch of passion. So they had a council of Brahmanas who would add the spiritual nature to that guidance. Because the ultimate definition of leadership is given in Vedic culture. To lead what? To lead prosper, yes, but to lead back home, back to Godhead. Back home, back to God. I mean, we have to go somewhere. We want to go back home. We left home, back home. We need some direction. So anyone in authority should be able to lead their dependents in that direction, irregardless. If you want to be a leader, not just a king, if you want to be a teacher, a father, a daddy, you're taking the responsibility for someone's life, and you have to know what is the ultimate destination. You have to know who you are. Who's Krishna? That's the Panam Gatim. What is your intimate relationship with the Lord? Then you're qualified to be a leader. Guru nasa syat syat jano nasa syat pita nasa svaj janani na sasyat. No one should become a spiritual master, a father, a husband, a mother, a king, or a worshipable demigod unless one can deliver his dependents from the repetition of birth and death. We think of, leadership in the term of demigods and kings, but even if you want to have children, best you be Krishna conscious. Because yes, you have to provide their necessities, but you have to instill in them a strong desire, loyum, or greed for going back home, back to Godhead. Then you're responsible. Actually, the parents' duties conclude eventually when the sons and daughters go back to the spiritual world. That's the perfection of leadership. So therefore, in Vedic culture, the king received guidance from the Brahmanas. A king was conversant, therefore, in the subtle laws governing material nature. by dint of the association of the Brahmanas, he knew of the subtle laws. He knew the laws from Manu Samhita, how to rule, how to tax, how to, provide irrigation and all that type of thing. But he also knew the subtle laws of material nature, how they're working. What's a subtle law of material nature? Karma. It's subtle, you can't grab it out of the air, but it's there. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So how can a king or any other leader govern without being conversant with the laws of God? The laws of God, the laws of material nature, let us say, are not arbitrary laws created by mundane politicians. They're absolute. The law of karma is absolute. And the law of karma influences all people at all times. For example, by discouraging people from sinful activities, that ruler saves such people from sinful reactions. People they have strong material desires and they become overwhelmed by those desires and they commit sinful activities, and you suffer if you commit sinful activity. The Bible says the wages of sin are death. It's a Christian proverb. The wages of sin. You get paid. What's the pay for sin? Death. So people are ignorant. Many people are ignorant. So the king, he would enlighten, to the Brahmanas, he would enlighten people. Don't commit sinful activity, because what goes around comes around. Once I was in Australia and I went to visit an Aborigine tribe in the north, and they have these, what do they call them? Boomerangs. And I was there, we were trying to introduce Krishna consciousness to the Aborigine tribe, and the leader wanted to share something of their culture with me. So he showed me this boomerang, and it's shaped, it's shaped like this. So he threw it. He caught it. So he said, "Swami, you try." So I wasn't very well versed. I said, "How was that?" All of a sudden, he came back. I just got distracted. So did I throw it good? And he went, So karma's like that. It's subtle. You can't see. Here's a king, a ruler, dealing with money and war and construction. But he also, because he's in charge of this kingdom, it means material prosperity and spiritual prosperity. He has to know the law of karma. So the kings would go out from time to time. They wouldn't just sit in their palace or whatever, and they'd ride around and see how things were going. Sometimes they would go incognito. Sometimes they would dress like an ordinary person, and they would go amongst the citizens and they would see what the state was, and they would make decisions based on that. So that was one service, is to protect people from, to know the laws of nature, how they're working, and to protect. Kshatriya means to protect from harm. Kshatriya means you protect from harm, not go out and fight a battle to protect your citizens, but you're well aware of the subtle laws of nature because you hear from the Brahmanas who know these things. They're learned in these truths. So they curb down sinful activity. So people didn't have to suffer. But in service to his people, a king was also aware of the fact that material prosperity, which is required, Prabhupada said we don't have to live like cats and dogs. We can live nicely like this if we use everything for Krishna's service. Material prosperity is dependent on the mercy of the Lord. There's 5 factors in every action, and one of them is the super soul or God. He has to sanction something happening. So real prosperity ultimately depends on the mercy of Krishna. So therefore Krishna says how to become prosperous. In business school, people go to business school to learn how to make money and be prosperous. They should know this one verse from Bhagavad-gita. Sahagyagna praja srishtva puruvacha prajapati. In the beginning of creation, all the political presidents, prime ministers, listen. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and bless them by saying, hey everybody, be thou happy by this yajna, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily, okay, but achieving liberation. So the kings knew this. Yajna vai Vishnu. Why? Because look what the Lord has provided us with. We sometimes, we become familiar with it. Where is the air coming that we breathe? From where it is coming? Where is the earth that we're walking on coming from? Where's the food stuff that we eat every day coming from? Where is everything we have coming from? Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita, He's the source of all that is material and all that is spiritual. So He's providing for us. So you have to say thank you. If someone gives you a gift, but you don't say thank you, can you expect another gift? This material nature is all a gift of the Lord, so that we can get through life as easily as possible. It's not a perfect place, therefore we're going home. But there's a formula for living. Simple living with high thinking, not complicated life with no time to think. So, yajna vai Vishnu. What does yajna mean? We'll put it in modern terms. Thank you. That's what yajna means. Yajna vai Vishnu. Why should I thank Vishnu? He's the source of everything you're using. You don't say thank you? Modern leaders think that prosperity comes through, economic development, the building industry, factories, but without the mercy of God, no endeavor is successful. Everything comes from Krishna. Nitya nityanam chaitanas chaitananam ekobahanam yo vididati kamam. The Supreme Lord is eternal, and the living entities are eternal. The Supreme Lord is cognizant, and the living beings are cognizant. The difference is, and this is the important point, the Supreme Lord is supplying all the necessities of life for all the living entities. So we have to say, every day we have to say. So in Vedic culture, what was the king doing? He was taxing people. People don't like the government. They want to go to some place like Dubai where there's no taxes. Someone you business in. Okay, it's reasonable, there's no taxes there. But taxing is necessary. People should pay their tax if the tax is used properly. Just like the rain clouds, they take water from the ocean, but then they go somewhere else, they put it on the field so you can grow the vegetables. So the king would take taxes from the people according to their amount of money they made, but he would redistribute it like the cloud pours the water on the fields for growing. He would give it back in the form of highways, just like your government under the BJP, in case there's any government officials here. I've seen, since I've been coming to India since 1971, you can't imagine what the roads were like in those days. It took 5 hours to drive to Vrindavan. Now, on the Yamuna Expressway, you're there in 2.5 hours. So the present government is building so many roads around this country now. I've seen. And they're also developing the holy places, like Ayodhya and so many places. Good government. I'm not a politician, I'm just saying I've seen. So the taxes they're taking are being useful. So that's what kings would do. They wouldn't pocket the money. They tax the people, no. They taxed them, then they would do like that. So to accept the gifts from the Lord without acknowledging them, Prabhupada said that means we're thieves. And a thief is always punishable by the laws of nature. And because people are not acknowledging that all these gifts of nature, whose nature? Krishna's nature, are being given by him, he's beginning to restrict the necessities of life. It's called climate change. People think climate change, you put something on the car so that it's not so much emissions coming out or the factories, No, climate change means Yajna vai Vishnu. Thank you, Lord. Anishavashnam idam sarvam yat kinja yagatnam jagatena taktena bunjideha magiraha kashashridhanam. Everything that moves and does not move in this world is owned and controlled by the Lord. So therefore one should only take what is necessary for himself, leaving the rest aside. Then there'd be enough for everybody on this planet. This planet is Purnam, it's complete. It's a complete package. Like an orange is a complete package. This is a complete package. The Lord's provided necessities according to one's need for every living creature. But man's very greedy. You put a bag of seeds in the forest, the little birds will come and take a few seeds. Man will take the whole package home and put it in storage. These are laws of nature. This is the kings, they knew these things. They knew these things. So if they listen to us, if they listen to Srila Prabhupada, as he explained this so clearly for the people of Kali Yuga, the whole world would change. Prabhupada said in Rome one time, I was there in one of his lectures, if just 1% of the world's population became Krishna conscious, the whole world would become so prosperous. Of course, the yajnas like they performed in days of yore are not possible now. That was the way you did it, especially in Treta Yuga, the age of ritualistic activities. They would amass lots of Lakshmi or money from the people, and they had these huge Agnihotras, Aswamedha sacrifices, tons of ghee and wood and brahmanas, and it was such a glorious affair that, thanking Vishnu, the demigods who are devotees of Vishnu or Krishna, to a great degree, not completely perfect, but they're higher than us, they would come down to accept the offerings and give them to Vishnu. I was reading the other day that the yajna was being performed by the priests. Svaha, svaha, svaha. I wasn't in Gurukul, I don't know how to do it. But the demigods would come and hover over the yajna-shala. And the priests would make the offering to the different, the 33 million demigods. I don't think they would all come, but whatever the yajna was, they would come, and the common man could see the Devatas accepting the yajna. Wow! And they would take and give to Vishnu. And if Vishnu was pleased with that, thank you, all prosperity would be there for society. This is the key. This is the thing they don't teach in economics in school. So now, this is Kali Yuga. And all these elements that we're meant to use, they're, because of climate change, because of Krishna's, they're not in such abundance. But the yoga should still go on, because we're also breathing, we're also walking, we have foodstuffs, so we have to say thank you. So how do we do it? Krishna varnam tusha krishnam shangopanga shapashadam yagnai sankatan prayar yajantihi shu medashaha. That's that same Lord who appeared in Dwapara Yuga, bluish black like a monsoon cloud, has now appeared in the age of Kali in the Chana avatar. He's a little disguised. He doesn't come as God. Prabhupada said if he came as God, everyone would want to imitate him and become God. That Mayavad philosophy is very dangerous. So Krishna comes disguised as the golden avatar. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ke! And he inaugurates the yajna by Vishnu, the Yuga Dharma of chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. It's even more merciful than Krishna. Krishna makes conditions for getting his mercy. In Sarva Dharmam Parityajam Mamekam Saram, just surrender unto me, I will protect you from sinful reaction. There's a condition. You have to surrender, then you get the protection. And what more, you can get devotional. Mahaprabhu doesn't. He just says, take Krishna. Take this mantra, take Krishna. We were in Rome, and Prabhupada was on the Vyasasana. He was speaking. Then he paused, and he said to all of us, here's Krishna, take him. We were stunned. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabhaha. After many, many lifetimes, a serious practitioner may get Krishna. But Prabhupada said, here's Krishna, take him. And there was this silence. And then Prabhupada continued speaking. This is, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is more merciful than Krishna, you could say in one sense, Prabhupada is even more merciful than Lord Chaitanya. Because if we had to practice Krishna consciousness like it was practiced by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 500 years ago, nobody would be sitting here. He was such a strict sannyasi. And the norms of society at that time were much different. But as the time goes on, the acharya means who's the representative of that sampradaya, he can make innovations without sacrificing tradition. The core tradition remains the same, but the acharya, according to the time he's living in, he'll innovate without sacrificing the tradition. This can only be done by acharyas, and Prabhupada was the perfect acharya. He made concessions. Ladies could live in the temple. Ladies got Gayatri Mantra. Ladies didn't get Gayatri Mantra previous age. And we got Gayatri Mantra. And we were born, at least myself, I was born in Yavanadesh, Malaysia Desh. But somehow the tsunami of Prabhupada's mercy swept the youth of America. And just as bell metal is changed into gold by a mystical process, so a fallen person can become a Vaishnava or Vaishnavi by diksha into the mantra of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Prabhupada said to Guru Das in London in 70-something, one day the scholars will write how this Krishna conscious movement saved the world in its darkest hour. So the glories of Srila Prabhupada are continuing, not that he left. He reasons ill who says that Vaishnavas die, when thou art living still and sound. A Vaishnav dies to live. He dies to live, and while living spreads the holy name around. So Prabhupada said, I will never die. I will always reside within my books, in my purports. So just as something falls into the pond and creates the ripples, and the ripples keep spreading, so Prabhupada's mercy is spreading with every book you distribute, with every temple that you open, with every restaurant with every cow that you protect, with every gurukul that you open. Prabhupada's mercy, like the ripple finally comes to Prabhupada's mercy will go on for the 10,000 years of the golden age of the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Prabhupada ki. So the chanting, to underestimate the glories of chanting Hare Krishna is actually an offense. And you read sometimes the glories of the Maha Mantra, and new devotee may go, what? There's no exaggeration. To think that the glories of chanting Hare Krishna is an exaggeration, that's an offense. For example, there was a plague in Kolkata in 1930. And there was one sadhu, Babaji actually, in Navadvip. He was a Vaishnava. He was chanting 192 rounds a day. And the plague, it was like a cholera, I think. People were dying left, right, and center. We say in English, left, right, and center. So in Kolkata. So this Babaji, he organized a Sankirtan party of about 100 Babajis, and they came from Navadvip to Kolkata, and taking great risk, because like COVID, you breathe it in, you get the cholera, right? Raki Krishna Mari Ke, Mari Krishna Raki Ke. They had faith that if Krishna wants to kill you, no one can save you, and if Krishna wants to save you, no one can kill you. They started going around, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. They didn't have accordions and sound systems and bugles like we do today. They had kol, they had kartal, and the Babajis are old, they have weak voices, but they had shraddha, they had faith in the holy names. Prabhupada said when he got to America, he was successful because of two things. He had full faith in the instructions of his Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he had faith in the chanting of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare.
That was his success. That's the foundation of success. So these Babajis were going all around, people were dying in the doorsteps, the dead are on the streets. You can imagine, it was a plague, it was killing people. And they had kirtan. And lo and behold, within a week, the plague had stopped, nobody was dying. So of course we don't use the Mahamantra necessarily for, our material means. But that's the power. There's routine devotional service, it's described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and there's emergency service. So sometimes in the emergency service, things are adjusted. So the mercy of God, the plague stopped. And people realized that. They gave credit to Krishna. God has stopped this cholera. And more people started going to the temple. So something like that. So therefore the yajnas must go on. Therefore the government should support this movement. Now we have secular governments. They separate religion from government. Because in the past, around the world, religion was not practiced properly. But Prabhupada said the misuse of something doesn't mean the original thing is wrong. You have to govern with religion. You have to govern because there's so many laws working. You have to know about this. You have to have the brahmanas. And no sinful activity. Prabhupada sometimes compares society to a sick body nowadays. And a sick body can't function properly. So the society is sick because the leaders are not governing them properly. Maharaj Parikshit, he left his safety of his palace. He's one example. He went around. People doing, hey, stop that. You stop that. He took his sword. If you don't stop, off with your head. Woo! He said, Kali, about to beat a cow. What? Nowadays, the governments authorize animal slaughter, tax liquor, maintain houses of prostitution, encourage gambling casinos. No wonder the people are suffering. And we shouldn't be surprised because this is described in Shastra, in our most important scripture. Grantha Raj Srimad Bhagavatam. Grantha means book. Grantha Raj means king, the king of all scriptures. Srimad Bhagavatam, because Amala Purana, it describes pure devotion. It also describes what's happening on this earth, so the rulers can get it into their head. I better rule properly. It's described. Evam prajabir dushtabir akrine shishti mandale. As the earth thus becomes crowded with corrupt population, whoever amongst the social classes shows himself to be the strongest and the cruelest will gain material power. I'm not going to say any names here today. Just think of some of the, not your country, but think of my country. What's going on? So actually, in the Manusamhita, it describes that the king has to share 1/6 of the sinful reactions of the people. People want to be, I want to be a prime minister one day. I want to be a president. I'd like to be vice, Okay, but beware. Manusamhita says that the ruler of the kingdom, he has to share 1/6 of the karma of the population. You want to do that? I don't want to be King Mommy. I want to be IT. I want to go to Silicon Valley. I want to be a brahmana and stay in India and worship the deities. Hare Krishna. 1/6. Now, if you've got a population, like China has 1 billion people. I go to China all the time. In Chinese, there's no word for God. They don't believe in a supreme being who is the source of all that is material and spiritual. At most, they worship ancestors. There's no conception of a supreme being. So it's a communist government, and they rule the way they do, but they're unaware of the gross and subtle laws of nature, such as we have the Vedas. So watch out. Actually, the people there are deprived of spirituality. There's no soul, there's no God, there's nothing spiritual. So the people, actually, it's interesting, just like some of the lower planetary systems are very opulent, but there's no God consciousness, so people suffer. It's interesting. First time I read that, the lower planets, they're very opulent, some of them, but there's no God consciousness. So people are suffering. So I see that in China. They have so many material things, but there's this stoic nature. But when we come and we arrange some meetings with Chinese people, with students especially, we sit down, they're like this. They've come for whatever reason. And we start singing, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And they start singing, they cry. It's like, sometimes you see this phenomena. There's the dry earth and a spring, underwater, there's the underwater layer. It springs forth, and that fresh spring water starts going to the fields. Happens sometime. I see that in China all the time. This is the mystical nature of this mantra. This is the power of this mantra. Kali Kali Nam Rup Krishna Avatar. It's an avatar of Krishna, the Maha Mantra. So when we chant in China, people cry. Am I right? Yes. They cry again and again. And I'm thinking, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for bringing this mantra to all the people of the world. It's meant for the whole world. Because Krishna says in the Gita, he's the seed-giving father of all created beings. Everyone's a devotee of Krishna. Jivera Supoya Krishnera Nityadas. They're thinking they're this or that, the body, the designations. George Harrison said, everyone's a devotee of Krishna. Some know it, some don't. So when you go to these distant places, and the austerity of traveling, the risk, the danger of going to these communist countries, and you see people cry, it's all worth it. Just like I was recently in Russia. For many years I got a visa to go back into Russia. And I was doing a program. There was a knock on the door. Swamiji, someone wants to see you. I was on a stage. Who? KGB. I went outside, there said, Swami, you're under arrest. For what? For singing the name of your God in our country. I said, it's the same God. No, it's not. They put me in jail. I was in prison, in a Russian prison for 7 days, and they told me I was going to be there for 2 years. What did I do? Namaste Narasingaya Praladalaya. And it worked. Not that I'm anything, but it worked. Prabhupada said in the age of Kali, 2 things never deteriorate. Everything deteriorates according to the 12th canto. But 2 things never are affected by Kali Yuga. Jewels and mantras. I heard it with my own ears. Jewels and mantras. Jewels, a jewel that has no imperfections in it, they're powerful according to the planets. We don't use them because we have full faith in the Maha Mantra. Krishna is the ruler of the planets. But for, in astrology, the astrologers sometimes, and mantras, they're never affected by the Kali Yuga. So we can chant with full faith. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So Krishna will save the devotees who sometimes risks are not unnecessary risks, or not foolish risks, but we went there with the intention of giving the people the Maha Mantra, and the Secret Service didn't like it, and they wanted to put me away to set an example for foreign missionaries not to come. Because I had a visa, humanitarian visa, with the right to give religious discourses. They gave me that visa. And I showed the judge, sir, he said, I make the decisions, not the visa. I said, yes, sir. He says, so 2 years in jail. I said, I've been coming to your country for a long time, since 1988. I was there when Yeltsin stood on the tank and fired the weapons at the White House. I saw the whole thing. He said, "You did?" I said, "Yes, sir. I've been coming for a long time. And I've been sharing this spiritual knowledge. We don't want that." I said, "Okay, I've been distributing food. We have food for life in your country. I've been coming." He said, "You did?" I said, "Yes." And I said, "I have goodwill." I said, "I'm not into politics. I don't know what's happening on the political platform, but the people are good here. People are good all over the world." So he crossed out the punishment. He said, "You've got 24 hours to get out of this country." He said, if not, I'm going to put you back into prison for 2 years. You got quick. I ran like the wind to the train station, and I went to the airport, and I flew out. And later, one of the devotees actually got to the judge, and he said, "Why did you change that person's sentence?" He said, "He was speaking nicely about my country. He said he likes all countries, but he did mention my country. And I like people who like my country, so I let him go." I think Krishna gave me the intelligence to say something like that at the court, and I got out, and here I am now. Thank you, Krishna. Hare Krishna. So when sinful activities are going on and people are propagating that, like you have gangsters, and you have these, what do you call them in Mexico? They have those, these cartels. You have things like this. People have organized crime. The king has to deal with them. He has to be heroic. He has to go out. He has to deal with that. When he sees sinful activity, he has to cut it down. Chanakya Pandit says you control a bull by the ring in his nose. You control an elephant with a goad. You control a horse with a whip. And a rascal man, you a dunda, a stick. So that's the king. He can't become king and just sit, and be afraid of people. He has to go out with a stick. Manusamhita says that if someone commits murder, takes another person's human form of life, the king has to take him and he has to be executed. Nowadays they're against capital punishment. But let them know that Manusamhita says that if you kill someone, then your next lifetime you have to have a very heavy reaction. But if you're executed, the reaction goes away. We don't discuss this so much in public, but these are how things work. So when the Khattriyas were courageous in curbing down the cartels and the sinful activities in society, they were admired by the people. The people, they didn't have to go to vote, yes or no. Our king's courageous. He's doing yajnas for our prosperity. He's a devotee of Vishnu. He's a devotee of God. He's cutting down sinful activity. Everything's prosperous. We can go to our temples or our churches or our mosques as we desire and worship the Lord of our hearts. Then people, they admire such kings. They had faith in the leaders. Sometimes the wives of such kings also demonstrated skills of leadership. The women also had that Kshatriya blood in their veins. Rukmini took the reins of the chariot while Krishna shot the arrows. He came to rescue her, Ranchur. He left the battlefield, came to rescue Rukmini. You know the story. And they were driving away. And Rukmini took the reins, the chariot, and Krishna's firing the arrows. These Kshatriya women were very powerful. So people were happy under the rules of these kings and queens who were performing yajnas and so forth and so on. This was perfect government, as we learned from the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we would encourage the modern politicians to do well by reading these verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. Here in your country, of course, the present government, Narendra Modi, is doing a wonderful job in his way of following many of these decrees. But much can be learned from the Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam. Let them simply study and apply these teachings. I think every country, part of becoming a politician should be a very close study of the 12 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then as Prabhupada said, even if 1% of the population are chanting Hare Krishna, the whole situation will change. What if 2%? What if 50% of the population? It'll be like, almost like heaven on earth. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Just a quick mention, something purely in the transcendental platform. I always feel a little embarrassed, but we have some books which you might be interested in, because the goal of all this business, whoever we are and however we're living in society, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, we're Vaishnavas. Our goal is back home, back to Godhead. Specifically beyond the Vaikuntha planets, which is the official kingdom of God, to the playground of God, where Krishna, out of his love for his devotees, love is reciprocal. He'll allow you to worship him, or not worship him, but love him as a child, love him as a friend, love him as a lover. That's Braj, that's Vrindavan, and that's our Param Gatim, that's our goal. We go through life following all these different rules and regulations. We keep our mind fixed on the goal. We know who we are. We know where we're going. We know the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the West, I ask people, who is God? Oh, he's God. Okay. Anything else? He lives up there. Anything else? No, that's all we know. No, it's not all you know. Come to Bharat, come to India, come to Vrindavan, study Srila Prabhupada's books, study the books of the Goswamis. Then you can fall in love with God. You can only fall in love with someone if you know something about them. How can you love someone you know nothing about? You have to come to India. India is meant to be that lighthouse of knowledge for the whole world, to avoid the danger of material existence. And remember Krishna, specifically Krishna, Radha and Krishna, like you have in your temple here. So during the COVID, when I couldn't travel anymore, the door was slammed in my face. I was traveling 54 years, suddenly stopped, can't go out. This big library, okay, I'll read it. I'll start giving classes about, I looked out the window, I'm in Vrindavan. So I'll learn more about Vrindavan to inspire devotees to come to Vrindavan and Goloka Vrindavan in the spiritual world, by falling in love with all the inhabitants of Braj, the Brajbasis. And I began giving lectures, 3 lectures a week, and then every Friday. And all those lectures, not all because I've already given 860, my students transcribed them and put them in book form. And the first, it's called a series, The Traveling Monk in Sacred Places. I wasn't traveling then, but anyway, the sacred places. The first one was Giriraj Govnala Lavam Siwala Ki Jai Ho! Govardhan Hill. Everything I could find, listening to the lectures of my senior godbrothers like Giriraj Swami. I could have done nothing without his mercy. His lectures and these lectures and the GBC Shastrik Committee and this and that, everything I could learn about Govardhan Hill, I spoke of, and we printed it here. And we also printed it in, what is that funny language? Hindi. So we have everything about Giriraj, because it'll help you if you go there. It's like the perfect Parikrama guidebook, well-researched, authoritative. And also, if you can't go to Govardhan Hill, in the privacy of your home, you can read about it and develop this desire of Raghunath Das Goswami to just live as an eternal resident at the foot of Giriraj Govardhan. That's that book. Then we came out with this book, The Sacred Forest of Vrindavan. My godbrother, Shivaram Swami, he's done so much research. He was one of my mentors in this. He said there's 60 billion holy places in Braj. Anyway, I covered as much as I could the western bank of the Jamuna, all the holy places on the western bank, with beautiful photographs. If you go to Vrindavan, you go to all these places, you simply open this book and there's pages and pages and pages on each of the holy places. where it is, which Braj Basa, Radha and Krishna, Lita, Vishaka, all the cowherd boys, Madhu Mangal, what happened there, what was the mood, what were the bumblebees singing, what did the flowers smell like? It's all described. All the sacred forests on the western bank. Then the next year, we came out with the sacred forest of Vrindavan on the eastern bank of the Jamuna. We tried to cover as much as we can. So we've got that. And then this year, we have come out with Everyone's Special, Shrimati Radharani and her 8 companions. Vedagupya. Vedagupya means that Radharani is such a special, deep, loving personality. Her love is so deep. It's only 3 persons really know the love of Radha. Radha, Madhavendra and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But we can worship that love from a distance. And in some ways we can participate by serving that loving mood of Radha and Krishna. It's very deep. So it wasn't until Madhavendra Puri appeared in this world that people started learning more about Sri Radha and Braj, etc. Madhavendra Puri, actually he knows the glories of Radha and Krishna because in the spiritual world he's a tree. What? A tree knows the intimate, loving pastimes of Radha and Krishna? Yes, because everything in Vrindavan is perfectly Krishna conscious, and it serves different moods. The trees provide shelter and fruits and so forth for Krishna and the cowherd boys, but they're not ordinary trees. They're fully pure devotees and rendering some variety of service. Variety is the spice of life. So Madhavendra Puri is a Kalpa Vriksha tree at Nidhivan. And Nidhivan, in Sevakunja, it's one place that Radha and Krishna have, loving discussions and talks and walks. And so he sees all that. So he appears in this world and he starts opening up this treasure chest of Braja Bhakti, which was further, of course, elaborated completely by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the 6 Goswamis. And it's deep knowledge, but Prabhupada so expertly presented it in the 10th canto, and of course a summary of the 10th canto. Krishna book. Krishna book is a summary of the 10th canto. And Prabhupada says there that one day when my disciples become very advanced to the stage of vipralambha bhav, feeling separation, we're just hoping after many lifetimes, he said Krishna book will give them solace. So Prabhupada gave us everything. He summarized all those deep pastimes in such a way we can understand. So in the same mood, I've compiled the book about Radha and her 8 companions. Like when you go to Mayapur, there's 4 girls on the left of Radha Madhava and 4 on the right. Jai Astasakis. Nobody knows anything about the Astasakis. But actually Prabhupada discusses, and the 6 Goswamis especially spoke about the Astasakis. So I took each of the Astasakis and wrote a big chapter about them. It took me 2 years, very carefully, and with the authority of senior godbrothers and the GPC Shastra Committee. Everything that we could understand now, because some of it goes quite deep. That's later on, when we're more advanced. But for instance, Lalita Saki. This is a whole chapter on Lalita Saki, and one of my disciples did beautiful illustrations for each of the 8 Astasakis. So we have to know, you have to study and know. We're chanting, we're very enthusiastic, but we have to know who are these personalities and why we're respecting them. More beautiful illustrations here. So when you go to Mayapur, you're in front of that temple, you're more enlightened, and your love is enriched with knowledge and appreciation, not just looking, but looking. You can stand a long time in front of the deities. Many times we come in front of the deities, that's a nice dress today. An advanced devotee, he likes to spend so much time in front of the deities, knowing the glories, knowing the mercy of that deity. He'll stand a long time in front of the deity. You have to pull him away. Prabhu, it's time to go on Sankirtan. Because darshan doesn't just mean you're looking at the deity. Darshan also means the deity's looking at you. Chaito darpana marjanam. The deity's looking at you. We want to become free of the pollution in our heart, so you stand in front of he's looking at your heart, cleansing the heart. This is the Sankirtan movement. So by knowing who the deity is, it's so wonderful. So these books are available. They cost $2,500 each. But somebody has said that's too much for brahmacharis and chowpati. So it's 2,500 rupees. You can take a loan from the TP. There's one other book you get for free if you take one of the books. I'm not here as a salesman. I'm just trying to be somewhat of a transparent medium for this wonderful knowledge that Srila Prabhupada has spread all around the world in Kali Yuga. So this is a service to you, actually. And this is a little book written by somebody insignificant. It's called Adventures of a Traveling Monk, a memoir. And I keep a diary for the last 50 years of my travels. And really, it is an adventure spreading Krishna consciousness in foreign countries. Sometimes it's humorous, sometimes it's fascinating, sometimes it's dangerous, but it makes good writing material. So I've written 15 books about my travels, Diary of a Traveling Preacher. My disciples took some of the best chapters for the public in mind, but 21 chapters of my travels around the world. Really easy reading, fun reading. You can give it to young people aspiring. Lots of lessons from Bhagavad-gita. Many people read it in one go at night. I gave it to your Prime Minister, Narendra Modi. I always wanted to meet him, and I was recovering from an operation. I had a big back operation, 5-hour operation on my back. They put this big metal plate in there. And the doctor said, "What, did you jump out of planes or something? How'd you get a bad back?" I said, "I think carrying a book bag for 11 years had something to do with it." Anyway, I was recovering in a hotel in Delhi, and one of the workers there came in and said, "Swamiji, you know what's happening today? There's a marriage in the park behind the hotel. One of the ministers' daughter is getting married, and the Prime Minister's coming." I was in bed, on my back. I jumped out, whoa! And I got dressed up in my sannyas dress, and I went into the park, walking very carefully, and everyone was in black ties and suits and everything, and I stuck out like a sore thumb, or maybe I don't know, it's not the best now, a bright orange flower. People were staring at me. What's this white sadhu doing here? And I had my book, and I told the security, I want to give my book to the Prime Minister. No way. You cannot go near him. I said, no way. No, this book may be a bomb. And I was thinking, Prabhupada described his books as bombs. So I almost said yes. I said, no, please put it through. And they had this machine that could detect if something was, like a bomb. Put it through. He said, all right, I'll just put it through. But he came back and said, I'm going to keep it so you don't give it to him. There's no bomb. I said, please. And you're not even going to get near to him. Krishna, help. So here's this big, huge security guy with his book like this. You're not going to get it. And then, the cars come. Everyone stands in line. I'm in the middle. I come up to the rope. And the Prime Minister comes in. He's walking. And he's looking. He was going to bless the couple, the minister's daughter, like that. There may be like 4,000 people there. And he walks by and he sees me. He goes, Hare Krishna! And he comes over to me. Everyone's so jealous. They all want to... He came over. He said, Hare Krishna. He said, when I'm in the company of many people, if I see a sadhu, I come to see him. I was very grateful. I said, Prime Minister, I'm your adopted son. Because I left my American culture to come to this country. I embraced Gaudiya Vaishnavism for the last 54 years, and I've been traveling all over the world, spreading the teachings of Bhagavad-gita and the chanting of Hare Krishna. So he said, you must be one of our, how did he put it? Yeah, but what kind of ambassador? Unelected ambassadors for our culture. Thank you very much. I said, thank you. I'm one of your ambassadors. He said, you're one of our ambassadors. I said, as the ambassador of Vedic culture, I'd like to give you this book. This is my adventures in spreading your culture. And he said to me, your culture, around the world. He took it and he went like this. This is very interesting. I said, thank you, Prime Minister. He said, okay, I'll take it and I'll read it. And then, we put our hands. I said, can I have a picture? There's a photo, and I use it all the time now. There were no seats on the train coming from Surat to Mumbai. I showed the conductor. He said, okay, sit here. So I gave it to the Prime Minister, and he went away. And on the way back, he went, Hare Krishna! So then he sent his secretary back. And he said, are you the Maharaj? I said, yes. So he gave the book. He said, the Prime Minister wants your email because he wants to write a review of your book for when you publish it next time. I gave him my email. So I'm still waiting for Narendra Modi's email about my book. So it's not about me, it's all about Prabhupada. So if you purchased any Govardhan book, Sri Radha, 2 books on the forest of Vrindavan, then even just one book, we give you one of these free. Sounds like a businessman. You get one of these free. And if you can't buy one of those, you can just buy this separately. All the proceeds go to the Sankirtan mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Where's our book table? There's a book table there. And I'll sit here. I have a pen. I hope I brought my pen. I think I brought my pen. I have a pen given to me. Ooh. My pen. I think my servant has it, my pen. Huh? It's not in there, actually. I think you have my pen, yes? Yeah. I was on the airplane. I sat next to a person who said, who are you, some crazy fellow dressed in a dress on this airplane? And what's this thing sticking out of the back of your head? And what are you mumbling in that sack? Brisuka, he had a Rolex watch and everything. So I said, sir, I'm a Vaishnava. I'm initiated by a bona fide spiritual master. I'd like to explain my life. Anyway, to make a long story short, on the flight from London to Delhi, I spoke to him. At the end, he said, I am so sorry for insulting you. I just did not understand. He said, I'm so sorry. I said, it's okay. So he took out his pen. He said, I've had this pen for 10 years. It's a Mont Blanc. It's very expensive. I want to give it to you. I said, I'm a sannyasi. I don't have all these rich things. He said, no, you can use it. He said, because he saw the book, he said, when you sign your books, you can sign the book with it. I said, that's a great idea. I took the pen. So I'll sign it. Any book you purchase, I'll give it my signature so you can remember this day when you had the opportunity to go deeper into Braj Bhakti. So thank you all so much. I'll be here for 1 hour with my pen. Book table's over there. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam K. Prem Dan Hurinam Sankirtan Yagya K. Hare Krishna Mahamantra K. Go Premanande. Hare Krishna.